and welcome back to the next session. In this session, we will be looking at the integration directory and we would be completing the first scenario that we had built with regards to the enterprise service repository. Before we move on, I just want to summarize where we are to now, right? So what did we do so far? In session one, we looked at what is PI, what is the role of PI, what are the various components of PI. Specifically, we looked at system landscape directory as to how it is the directory where all the systems are registered. We looked at the enterprise service repository, which is where the design time of PI is. We looked at another component integration directory where I had mentioned that we would be configuring the interfaces, and then we looked in the components of PI. We also had the runtime of PI, which was the integration server and the various engines that were there within that. Subsequently, we then looked at what are in the SLD, what are the various types of technical systems, web-based, ABAP, web-based, Java. We looked at what are the types of business systems. We looked at what is a product. We looked at what is a software component. And then we went on, did a hands-on in the SLD where we created a product, we created a software component, we created a third-party technical system, and then we created a third-party business system. Then we went on to the enterprise, sorry, I'll just open the notes. So then we went on to the enterprise service repository where I walked you through various compatibility versions with which Java Web Start is supported by which PI. What we then did was we imported the software component from the SLD into the enterprise service repository. We created a namespace, we created our data types, we created our message types, we created our service interfaces, we created our message mapping, we created our operation mapping, and with that we had stopped our enterprise service repository development. Now let's look at the next component or the next piece in the puzzle, which is the integration directory. I do have quite a few slides here, but then I'll try to just keep it to focus to the points that I would like to highlight. So integration directory is where the configuration of your PI objects work. Your integration directory is accessed using graphical Java Web Start tools. What are the objects that you define in the integration directory? You would first define what we call as collaboration profiles. What are these collaboration profiles? You will create there's something that is called as a party. We will discuss that later. You would either import, if you remember in the SLD section, we had created a technical system and we had created something that was called as a business system. And when we were talking about business system, we had referred to it as a logical grouping that is used by PI. So what you do in the collaboration profile is nothing but a business system. A business system is nothing but an end system to which your either PI is either sending data to or receiving data from. So you can define a business system in the SLD, and that business system forms a part of the collaboration profile. There are other types of systems as well, which we shall look at. Then we also looked at channels. Remember, this interface is a file PI file to file interface. So we would be creating two channels, one for the sender file and one a receiver file, and the sender file is used for PI to get the file from the third party sending system, and the receiver file is used for PI to push the file to the receiver systems. What you would then create is what we call as a collaboration agreement. In technical terminologies, this is a sender agreement and a receiver agreement. And then we will be creating what we call as routing rules, what is a receiver determination, and what is a interface determination. Don't worry, we should be going through each of the step in detail. Okay, collaboration profile. Like I had mentioned, a collaboration profile contains multiple components or different types of configuration objects. You can define what we call as a communication party. We will not be dealing with parties in details. At this point, just remember that communication party are used in B2B integration. What is B2B integration? B2B integration is business to business integration. We had touched upon it in the first session. Business to business integration is when you are exchanging data across corporate networks over the firewall. It becomes a business to business integration. I had given the example of Walmart and Unilever as to how they exchange purchase orders, and because the data flows from one corporate entity to other corporate entity, it is called as a B2B or a business to business integration. So communication party are the objects that are defined when you're doing a B2B integration. We will be not be looking at that in detail. Business systems are the end systems or logical end system that is defined in the SLD. Business component, it is not necessary always that you define the end system or the third party system in the SLD. There would be cases where you would say, hey, I don't know, for example, let's take the case of salesforce.com. Salesforce.com is a cloud application, right? So does it have a physical host name? No. Does it have an IP address? No. So in that case, defining salesforce.com in the SLD does not make any sense. But then it is still a receiving system or a sending system. So in such cases, what you would do is you would create a business component in PI. So instead of defining the end system in the SLD, you can also create what we call as a business component in PI. So in the first exercise that we are going to do, we will be importing the business system that we created in the SLD. So that is going to be our sending system, and our receiving system is going to be a business component that we will create in the integration directory. Okay, business processes is nothing but CCBPM. If you remember in the session 1, we talked about CCBPM. CCBPM is your ability to create a business process in PI where you can collect data from multiple systems and so on. This will be looked at in detail. In-depth exercises are something that we have planned. So do not worry about it. We will look at business processes in detail. Communication channels, we will be doing it in the first session where we would be creating a sender file adapter and a receiver file communication channel, or a sender file adapter and a receiver file adapter. Okay, so all these objects form a part of the collaboration profile, and then we will be creating two other objects that are called a receiver determination and an interface determination. Receiver determination is just used for logical, these are used for logical routing and defining the flow of your message. This will help us identify who's the sender of a message, who's the receiver of the message, and what is the mapping that needs to be executed. Collaboration agreement contains two objects, sender agreement and receiver agreement. Sender agreement and receiver agreement are used to combine these two objects together. You know, the collaboration profile objects and the logical routing objects. These two objects are combined to, you know, relate these two objects. You create a sender agreement and a receiver agreement. At this point, don't try to understand too much about these jargons. We would be doing them in the system, and they will make your life much more easier. So with that, let's close the slides and then look at what are all the objects that we need to create for a file-to-file scenario. Okay, so I'm creating a new slide. So session 4, integration directory, right? So what is the scenario that we are building? We are building a file PI file scenario, and our sender system is the business system that is defined in the SLD. So we had defined this in the SLD in session 2. Okay, so let's move on now. So what we would be doing first in the integration directory is import business system from the SLD. Okay, we will look at how to do that. Okay, and after we import the business system from the SLD, what we would be doing is, so this will acts as the sender system. Define/create business component. See the difference? One is a business service system, the other is a business component. So the other end system is going to be define/create business component in the integration directory. So you're going to directly define it in the integration directory. No SLD definition is going to be done. Used as the receiver system. Okay. Next, what you would be creating, you will create a sender communication channel. You will create a receiver communication channel. And then you will create a sender agreement. You will create a receiver determination object. And you will create an interface determination object. and finally you will create a receiver agreement object. With that, you will be ready for testing your interface. Okay, so let's start. How do I define? First of all, before we start each of the objects, let's go ahead and launch the integration directory. So again, how do I launch my PI server? I am logged on to my ABAP stack of PI, and I'm going to go to the transaction sxmb underscore ifr. Cool, my integration SPI homepage is launched. And now I need to launch the integration builder for the integration directory. And so I click on this. It's going to ask me for my user. And it's launching it with the Java web start. So let's wait for it to launch. So now, before we go that, how do I organize my objects in the integration directory? How did we organize our object in the ESR, in the enterprise service repository? Okay, if you remember, within the enterprise service repository, we define a software component, and within the software component, we defined a namespace, and all the objects were contained within the namespace. So same way, how do I organize my objects in the integration directory? I will be creating a folder, and within the folder, I will be creating a configuration scenario. Okay, so let's have a look at it. So this is what my integration directory looks like. All right. Now, how do I create a folder, right? So here, if you go to this option button at the top, object view, you will have multiple views. You'll have an object view, you'll have a configuration scenario view, and you'll have a folder view. Okay. So let's create a folder. Go to the view, folder view. All right. So I'm selecting the view, object view, and select folder view. Okay, so now if you see, I'm in a folder view, I'm right clicking and I'm saying new. And I select the object folder. Okay, let's do it one more time. Right click, new, select the object folder and call the folder as training 00. You can call it whatever you want. I'm using training 00 as a suffix for my name. So that's my folder. So this is what is going to contain all the objects that I'm going to be creating. And I'm now going to save my folder. So once I save my folder, I can see that the folder is available here. And now within the folder, so create folder training 00. Now I'll create a subfolder, file to file 00. All right. So why file to file 00? Because all the objects for my file to file scenario will be contained within this. So right click on my folder, say again go to folder and create. Okay. So right click on this folder, go to folder, click on create. And it becomes a subfolder, and I'm going to call it file to file 00. Excellent. Next, I've created my folders, right? Now, I'm going to create a configuration scenario. Okay. So my folder has been created. Next, I'm going to create a configuration scenario. So I'm going to right click, say new. Make sure I'm right clicking on the folder where my configuration scenario has to be created. Right click, new. On the left hand side, look for configuration scenario. Where is configuration scenario? Here we go. Select configuration scenario. And let's call it cs underscore file to file underscore 00. Okay. So it says very clearly within the folder file to file. Let's say create. Okay. That's it. Now my configuration scenario is created, and I'm going to save my configuration scenario. So all my objects are now available the way I want them to. Now I'm going to go in. The first thing I need to do is import business system from the SLD. The one thing that I would recommend is, because the business system is this business system and business component, are going to be used across all the interfaces that you're going to build. They are, while you will create them one time, you're going to be using them across all the scenarios. So what I'm going to recommend is, instead of importing the business system under file to file, import them under your root folder. So I'm going to go in, right click, say new. Okay. Oops, sorry. We are now going to import the business system from the SLD. So right click, assign business system. So let's do this. I'm going to note it down. Right click on your root folder, assign business system. Okay, I'm on my root folder, assign business system. It's going to import this wizard, say introduction, say continue, leave the party as blank. So I'm leaving it blank, continue. And now if you see it is showing me all the business systems that are there. What was the name of our business system? Let's open up our notes, right? While I remember it, I just want to re-emphasize it, why it is important. The name of our business system was BS underscore file system underscore 00. Okay, do you see that here? Yes. Just one point of note, if you're not able to see your business system here, you need to clear the SLD data cache, and to do that, go to environment, clear SLD data cache. We did that when we were importing the software component in the SLD. So every time an object is created in the SLD, you might want to go ahead and do an environment clear SLD data cache. We do not need to do it in this server, but then if you do not see your object in your server, do an environment clear SLD data cache. Okay, so I've selected the business system that I want to import. Make sure it is assigned here, and also make sure the add to folder is empty, right? So we want to assign it to training 00. So assign it to training 00. So let's note that down. Okay. Assign it to the configuration scenario and the root folder. Let's close the SLD nodes. Okay, let's save this. Okay, and then say finish. You get a message, business system file 00 created. Do we see it? Yes, you see that. Now let's see, double click it and open this business system. What do you see when you double click and open? It already has the service interface here, and it has the service interfaces that you created here. All this information and all this logic is taken from the SLD. I'll not go into that now, but that's about it, right? Now, what's the next step? Let's look at it here. The next step was define/create a business component in the integration directory, right? So let's do that. Again, right click on the root folder training 00. Right click on the root folder training 00, say new. When you were importing the business system, you had told assign business system. Now you're creating a business component. What is the difference between a business component and a business system? A business component is not created in the SLD. A business system is created in the SLD. That is the underlying difference. Okay. So let's say new, and let's select business component. Okay. So I'm going to call it BC underscore file system underscore 00. So BC is the file system business component for the file system, whereas BS is the business system for the file system. Okay. BC underscore file system underscore 00. Make sure it is assigned to your configuration scenario, and make sure it is assigned to your root folder. And say create. Perfect. Now let's save. The one thing about a business the difference between a business component and the business system is, if you look at the business system, the interfaces are visible immediately, right? Now if I look at the business components, the interfaces are not visible. So for the business component, you need to add the interfaces manually. All right. So which interface do we add? Right. The outbound interface or the inbound interface. This BS file system 00, if you look, is used as the receiver system. So let's make a couple of notes here. So it acts as a revision for all of us. Create new business component in the SLD in the integration directory. Give name as BC underscore file system underscore 00. Now that that is done, assign receiver interfaces, inbound interfaces to this business system. So I go into the receiver because this business system is going to act as the receiving system. I'm going to go here and I'm going to use the selection help. Okay, so what is the name of our service interface? What is the name of our inbound service interface? The name of our inbound service interface is SIIATGT, which we created, right? So I'm going to go here and search for that. Perfect. Okay. Oops. So now make sure is it the right namespace? Make sure it is the right namespace. Yes. File to file 00. Yes, this is my software component and this is my service interface. So I'm selecting this and assigning this as my inbound service interface. After I'm done with that, I'm clicking on save. Perfect. So my BS file system 00, which I defined in the SLD, is acting as my sending system. My BC file system 00 or business component, which I created in the integration directory manually, is acting as my receiving system. My business system needs to be created in the SLD and imported into the integration directory. My business component need not be created in the SLD. I can directly use it from the integration directory by creating it. The business system will have the service interfaces assigned to it from the SLD, whereas the business component needs the service interfaces to be assigned manually. Okay, so in this case, because the business system is a receiver system, I have assigned the SIA8 target service interface to the business system, to the business component. Is that clear? Perfect. Now, before I make any changes, I want to make my change list clean. So I'm going to go in and right click and activate it. Okay, how do I activate the change list? Go to the tab change list, right click on the standard change list, select all your objects and activate. The same way that you did it in the enterprise services repository. And I'm going to close all. So I can close all the objects and now it's much more cleaner. Okay. Next. What else do we have to do? Let's close this. Define or create sender communication channel. Right? Now who's the sending system? Is it BC file system 00 or BS file system 00? What have we agreed upon? The BS file system 00 is our sending system, right? So I'm now going to create a communication channel. So how do I create? Right click on my business on the center business system, say new. And once here, you look at it, collaboration profile, make sure you're in the communication channel, right? And once you're in the communication channel, give the name of the communication channel, CC underscore file to file underscore sender underscore 00. So what does this naming convention mean? CC stands for file communication channel, file to file stands for the file to file scenario, and I'm going to assign it to the right folder. I need to assign it to the file to file folder. Okay. So this is my sending business system. This is the communication channel name. It's of type file and the direction is of type sender. Okay. And I've assigned it to the folder file to file 00. And I say create. Perfect. So this is what my communication channel looks like. The first thing I need to do is select the adapter type. What is the adapter type? Let's have a look. Okay. So PI provides you with multiple adapter types to connect to different types of systems. So you have a file adapter, you have an IDOC adapter, you have a JDBC adapter, you have a JMS adapter. We look at each of these adapter types in different exercises, but in this scenario, we are dealing with files, so we'll select the file adapter. Okay, so I've selected my file adapter. And is it of type sender or receiver? It is of type sender, so it is sender. Let's look at the transport protocol. The transport protocol has two options: file system, network NFS, and file transport protocol FTP. So if you want PI to connect to an FTP server, you select the FTP. In this case, we are going to connect it to an NFS server. So we'll just say file system as NFS. Okay. Now what is the directory I'm going to connect to? Let's look at that. So I'm going to my PI server. I'm going to transaction AL11. Okay. I'm looking for a test directory. So I'm going to my directory AL11 and I have this directory that is called training. Okay. And this is the directory where I'm going to look for the file. So let's type that directory. // I actually have that handy here. So let me just open it here. And this is my directory. Okay. So this is the same directory you see here. SCM EHP2, SAP mount, trans training. Okay. So I'm telling, please look at this directory for my sender file adapter channel and look for the file that is called file2file.xml. So PI is going to say in this directory, it is going to look for the file that is called file2file.xml. Okay. Next, let's look at what is this processing tabs. Quality of service will be exactly once. Don't change anything here. Don't change anything here. Very importantly, come to this processing mode and change it from test to delete. What does processing mode mean? All right. Processing mode means what should PI do to the file after it has picked up the file. Test mode means PI will not do anything, which means every 60 seconds PI will keep picking up the same file. We do not want that. Delete is going to delete the file. Archive will archive the file. Where does it archive to? You give the archive directory. You want a timestamp to be added to the file? Select this option. The idea is, depending upon the option you choose, the GUI will adapt itself. So I'm now going to say delete the file, which means the file is going to get deleted. There are multiple other options available here. Archive faulty source file, process read-only file. What is the sequence in which the file should be processed? Should it be looking by name, by date, if there are multiple files? What is the type of the file? So a lot of this, each of these parameters, what do they do? What is its usage? My recommendation is to read at help.sap, and I will spend probably in the next session walking you through how to navigate to help.sap and understanding the documentation from SAP. But for now, because this is our first scenario, we'll just keep it simple. I've created a file sender channel under my sender business system, and within that I've called the business system as, I provided the source directory where the file has to be picked up, and I'm giving the file name as to what is the file name that PI should look for. And very importantly, please make sure you do not forget this, change the processing mode to delete so that the file gets deleted and your PI server does not get overloaded. Okay, I'm done with this and I'm saving my file. Okay, so let's make some notes as to what we did. Create sender channel with adapter type, file, select protocol. We selected the protocol as NFS because the file is a shared directory via AL11. Provide the directory, provide the file name. In this case, if you look at the file name, I have given it as file2file.xml. There are wildcards that are also selected, available. Okay, so what we can do is, in this case, I've given the same name. If required, I can also use a wildcard that means file2file star.xml. And what will this do? It will make sure that PI will pick up any file that begins with file2file and has an extension star. But I'll leave it at this now. Okay. Then provide the file name. Make sure while delete mode is set. Make sure we also know that wildcards are supported. Okay, what is the next step? We have to create the receiver communication channel. So let's go ahead and create a receiver communication channel. How do I create a receiver communication channel? The same way as the sender, but who's the receiver, who's the receiving system? The receiving system is our business component, bc underscore file system underscore 00. So I'm selecting this, right click, new, make sure you select communication channel, because what are we doing? We are creating a receiver communication channel. Select cc, give the name as file to file underscore receiver underscore 00. Let's make a note of the names. Okay, the sender channel was called okay. Make sure it is assigned to the right folder, value list, file to file. Make sure it is within the file to file folder. Say apply, let's say create. Now that my file adapter is channel is created, select the adapter type. And what is the adapter type going to be? File, because this is of type file adapter. So make sure that the adapter type that is selected is file, and after you make it file, click on apply. Now, is it a sender channel or a receiver channel? In this case, it is a receiver channel, so make sure it is receiver is selected, and now give the target directory. We'll give the same target directory that I have noted down here. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'll create one more subdirectory within this saying file to file. Does this directory exist here within this? No. But do you see this option, create target directory? So PI is intelligent enough where if the directory does not exist, it can automatically create a directory. So my output files are going to be created in file to file, and I'm going to call this file name as file to file output underscore .xml. So what's going to happen? It's going to create a file that's called file to file output .xml in this particular directory. Now let's see what other options do we have. File construction mode. What if the same file name exists? Should PI override the file? Should PI create a file? Should PI append the file if there's a file existing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add timestamp. So what PI is going to do, it is going to create a file to file output, and then it is going to append a timestamp to the file name. There are multiple other options, add message ID, add counter. So what is add counter going to do? There's a running incremental counter that can be added. What is message ID going to do? It will add a unique 16-digit hexadecimal value to the file name. So the idea being to make sure that your file names are unique, you have multiple options that PI provides you with. Nothing in the advanced mode, don't do anything in the advanced mode. So very simple, we created a new file adapter under the business component. We made the transport protocol as again file system NFS. We are not dealing with FTP for now. Then you give the target directory, you give the file name schema. In our case, even though the target directory does not exist, because we have the option create target directory selected, the directory will also be created by the file adapter. In the processing mode, you can select create, append, add timestamp, and so on. We'll select add timestamp and save your communication channel. So if you see now, I'm going to just drag this a little. Our sender channel is created and our receiver channel is created. Okay. Next, what is the next step? Create a sender agreement. So let's make some notes here. Type is file under business component. It is created under business component. Provide file directory. Create target directory. Provide file name. Provide file creation option. Add timestamp. Okay, cool. So next, what are we going to do? We are now going to create a sender agreement. So let's see how What do we give in there? What are the when you create a sender agreement, there are a couple of details that the PI will ask. What is the sender system? What is the sender interface? What is the sender interface namespace? And sender communication channel. These are the values that a sender agreement is going to ask. So in our case, before we go into the system, what is our sender system? It is BS underscore file system underscore 00. What is our sender interface? It is SIOA underscore SRC. What is our namespace? http://training.com:/file to file underscore 00. And sender communication channel, we just created it here. It is going to be this guy. As simple as that. And you need not type any of this. Don't worry, you need not type any of this. You can actually you need not type any of this. All of this is selection help. You have to mandatorily use the selection help. Okay, so when we define a sender agreement, PI is going to ask who's the sending system, who's the sending interface, what is the sender interface namespace, and what is the sender communication channel. So let's go ahead and right click on the subfolder and say new. Now a sender agreement comes under collaboration agreement. So select sender agreement. So now let's use the selection help. Communication component is nothing but the sender business system. So let's use the selection help. And what is our sender business system? BS underscore file system underscore 00. So you see this BS underscore file system underscore 00. I say yes. What is my sender interface? Let's select. It automatically tells me, hey, this is the only interface that is available for this business system. SIOA source file to file under my Z training software component underscore 00. Perfect. Create. So I select this option and I say create. But before that, let's add it to the configuration scenario. What is the name of our configuration scenario? CS underscore file to file 00. Do you now see the significance? There's somebody else who's also created a CS file to file in the server. And by having the suffix, I am immediately able to identify that this object belongs to me. This is something that typically happens in all training environments, and that's why having the suffix will make your life much, much more easier. Okay? Cool. So let's go ahead and create a sender agreement. The sender agreement is created. There's one option, one more question it is asking. A star denotes that it is a mandatory field. So it's asking me who's the sender communication channel. So let's use the selection help. And my CC file to file sender 00 that we created in the second step here is my sender channel. I select the apply and I click on save. Voila, my sender agreement is created. It's as simple as that. Next, what's the next step? Create a receiver determination. When you do define a receiver determination, PI will ask you who's the sender in system, who's the sender interface, who's the sender interface namespace, who's the receiver system, and that's about it. Okay, so we already have all of this information. The sender system is BS file system 00. The sender interface is, let's just copy all of this. These three are the same. If you look at it, it will ask this. The only difference being that for a receiver sender agreement, it was asking the sender communication channel. Now for a receiver determination, it will ask you who the receiver system is. And who is the receiver system? It is our business component, BC file system underscore 00. So let's go ahead, right click, new receiver determination. Under configuration objects, you have receiver determination. It is auto-filled because we just created a sender agreement. PI knows that you're trying to create a sender agreement. So you can always delete this. So I'm going to delete every value and redo this, okay? So communication channel, BS underscore file system underscore 00. I use the selection help. I select my service interface, SIOA. This is the outbound service interface or the sender service interface. And then the software component I selected. say create. Perfect. Then what did we say it will ask us? It will ask us for the receiver system. So this is nothing but for this receiver, for this interface, who's the receiver, right? So click on this help. What is the receiver? BC underscore file system underscore 00. You see this? BC underscore file system underscore 00 is our receiving system. So I select that and I say apply. And I say, and then I save this object. Okay. Now, what the remaining two objects, if you see there are two more objects that are required. If you see here, interface determination and receiver agreement. So now you can either create them manually or you can create them from the receiver determination. So how do we create them from the receiver determination? Okay, so you go to the configuration overview, and create specific interface determination and receiver agreement. Let me show you that. Okay, so this is my receiver determination object. I'm going to go to the configuration overview tab. So PI is telling me, hey, this is the receiver. So I'm expanding this and it has something in red, which means there are some objects that are not there. And like I told, you can create the interface determination and the receiver agreement directly from here. So right click, say new specific. And that's why I told here and create specific interface determination and receiver agreement. So right click, say new specific, make sure you say new specific. Make sure you say new specific. I told new specific. And here we go. So if you see now it has created an interface determination and it is asking us for the details of the interface determination. So it's asking me for the mapping program. Let's use the selection help. I use the selection help. Is this my mapping? Of course, yes. So PI is very, very intelligent that way. Using the outbound service interface, it can help you identify what is the mapping. Yes, this is my mapping where OM source to target, training file to file 00. Everything is my object. I say apply and voila. My operation mapping data is here. My inbound interface data is here. My namespace data is here. And I'm going to save it. So after I save my interface determination, I need to go you need to refresh the configuration. Remember, we just created the interface determination. So if you refresh it, now my interface determination is populated. So the next object is create a new specific receiver agreement. And then select new specific receiver agreement. So I'm going to go here, right click, say new specific. Perfect. And here I'll select the receiver communication channel. I got the communication channel name CC file to file receiver 00 and I'm clicking on apply. And with this, my communication channel is also keyed in. I'll save this object, which means my receiver agreement is also created. So the idea is that, so if I go back to my receiver determination, sorry, it closed here. So I'm going to click on the receiver determination here. And now if you see, if I go to the configuration overview tab and select my inbound interface, make sure you're clicking the cursor here. If you select the cursor here, nothing's going to be visible. Make sure you select the inbound interface and it is automatically going to tell you all the objects are perfect. It was red in color previously. Now it is nothing in red. And with this, your configuration is complete. What does this mean? Your end-to-end flow is complete and now you can start testing this interface. So before I do that, I need to go to my change list and activate all my changes. So I'm right clicking, making sure all of these are my objects. Everything has 0000, 0000, everything's okay. So let's go ahead and activate. And voila. With this, our integration directory configuration is completed. So, how do I test this interface? Well, first of all, I need my input file. How do I get my input file? Do you remember? Oops. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So how do I get my input file? I'm going to my enterprise service repository. If you remember, we had the message mapping here. We can use the message mapping to generate the input file. So I go to the test tab and I'm going to say duplicate subtree, and let's add the data one more time. Let's add two qualifications for John Doe. One is a Bachelor of Engineering, another is Masters in Science, and then Jane Doe 2, female, 1 Feb 1992, and let's say sports. Okay, and then if you go to the, once you've gotten this data, if you go to the source text view, you have the raw XML. So check this XML over, do copy paste, do a Control C to copy it, open up Notepad, paste the data, and this is your input file. So I'm going to put this as file to file .xml. So I'm going to save it as an XML file, and now I need to upload it to my directory. Now the process to upload it to your directory can be multiple. In different systems you'll have it different ways. So you need to reach out to your basis consultant to understand how to upload your files to the directory. In my case, I'm going to go use CG3Y. For people who are used to CG3Y, you would know what it is. If not, just keep watching. This is one way of uploading CG3Y. Sorry, I'll be using the transaction CG3Z. Okay, so this transaction CG3Z is not available on your PI servers. It is only available on your ECC server. So I'm connected to my ECC server. This is my ECC server, and I'm telling this is my remote file, and I'm saying file to file.xml, and what is my local directory, right? If I go here, this is my local directory, and this is my file name, file to file.xml. So what am I telling? So if I go here to this directory, there's no file called file to file.xml. If you see, there's only two files, something that's to be deleted, and then there's file to idoc. So now I'm going to upload this file. So it's going to read the file. The transaction I'm using is called CG3Z, C for cat. Okay, let me write it here. CG3Z, that's the transaction that I'm using, CG3Z. Source of file on the front end, so it is within this directory, and I'm uploading it to the directory where PI send the file adapter. So this is the directory and this is the file name with which it is expecting, and I'm uploading this. I say remember, hello, and completed. Right now if I refresh my directory in AL11, my file to file is available, but there's a problem that I have. I cannot see the oh, there's a directory. So PI already picked up the file and processed this. Do you see this? So it was so fast. Even though the polling interval was 60 seconds, the moment I uploaded the file, PI, if I look at it here, remember we had told create a directory called file to file. So PI picked up the file, deleted the file, and created the output file. So let's look at the output file. Awesome. You see the name? It is John Doe. It was in our input file, it was first name John, last name Doe. But here you see it's John Doe, and we have all the qualifications, and the next employee is Jane Doe, and so on. Let's do it one more time, right? So I'm going to upload this file here. My file has been uploaded. Now I'm going to refresh it. And you see, the next file is also being created. It's exactly at the same time. And you see what happens? Remember, we had told file to file output and add timestamp, so PI is automatically added the timestamp to it. Let's do it one more time. Upload. Here you see file to file. This file is there in the directory. The polling interval, if you remember in the communication channel, I have told please look for the file every 60 seconds. So exactly in 1 minute, approximately 60 seconds, it is going to pick up the file and process the file. So keep refreshing. We'll have to wait for a couple of more seconds. I'm hoping it works. No, I'm sure it will. It worked twice. So it's just a question of time. Yeah, so you see one file has disappeared. Perfect. Now I go to the directory and you see the third file is available at the same time. Perfect. So with that, we are coming to the end of this session. We've done our first exercise where we have basically, let's go here, sorry. Where we have basically, let me expand this, where we configured the integration directory for our file PI files scenario. What did we do in this scenario? First thing that we did was our sender business system is going to be the business system that we defined in the SLD in the session 2. So we imported the business system from the SLD. Then we created a business component in the SLD. So there are different types of end systems that you can create in PI. A business system is defined in the SLD. A business component is created directly in the integration directory. It does not need any SLD definition. So in this scenario, this is going to be used as our receiver system. We then define a sender communication channel of type file. We define a receiver communication channel again of type file because you're going to push a file out from PI. We created 4 PI objects: sender agreement, receiver determination, interface determination, and receiver agreement. The interface determination and receiver agreement were created from the receiver determination. And how did we organize our objects in the integration directory? We created a base folder. We created a configuration. So our folder was called training00. We created a subfolder called file to file 00. So if I go back here, I'll close all. I created a folder training00, I created a folder file to file 00, and I created an object called configuration scenario. And this configuration scenario will contain all the objects that we have. Okay, we'll come to this later in some of the other exercises. What we did after that was we imported the business system from the SLD. How did we do that? We right click, we right click on the base folder, say assign business system. And when I assign the business system, it will ask me for a partner. I leave my party blank. I leave the party blank. I say continue. And then I selected my business system. Now I will not be, I see the BS file system 00 here? No. Why? Because I've already imported into the SLD. So if you do not see your business system, there would be 2 reasons. One, check if it has already been imported. Second, if it is not imported, clear the environment, go to environment, clear SLD data cache. Okay, then we created a new business component. How did we create a business component? Right click, new business component, and give the name of your business component. What is the difference between a business system and a SLD? In the case of a business system, the interface details are automatically populated because it is reading the data from the SLD and the enterprise service repository. In the case of a business component, you need to manually assign the service interface. In our case, the business component BC file system 00, this service interface is something that we assign manually, and because it is a receiver business system, we went to the receivers tag and assigned the inbound asynchronous service interface. Okay, once we did that, what did we do? We created a sender communication channel. The sender communication channel was created under BS file system 00 because BS file system 00 is our sending system. We gave the name CC file to file underscore sender 00, right? This is the name of this. CC stands for communication channel, file to file to denote what kind of scenario we are using it in. File is the type of file, what is the direction, and 00 is our suffix. Okay, the transport protocol, you have NFS, you have Uh, FTP, we didn't look at the message protocol. We will look at that separately. You give the directory from which the file has to be picked up. You give the file name for which the file is being looked, the file adapter has to look for. You can also use a wildcard here. In our case, we are not using a wildcard, but if you would like to, you can always use a wildcard. In the processing, you give the polling interval. We left it at default. We will look at the quality of service subsequently. And in the processing mode, you say, what is the mode of processing? In our case, we are saying, please delete the file. If you would like to archive the file, you can also select archive. Okay. What did we do next? We created a receiver communication channel. The receiver communication channel was created under the business component, BC file system 00. So I go here, I gave the name of the file adapter, and here I gave the target directory. This directory was not existing, and by selecting this option, PI will check if the directory exists. If it does not exist, PI will create the directory. And this is the name of the file. In the processing tab, I selected add timestamp, as a result of which my files have a timestamp associated with it. And that's about it. What was the next object I created? I created a sender agreement. When I create a sender agreement, it will ask me who's the sending system and what is the sender interface name and namespace. Once I select that, it will ask me what is the sender communication channel, and I selected my sender communication channel. Then I created a receiver determination. It will ask me who's the sending system, who's the sending interface, and the interface namespace, same thing. And then it asks me for, let's open the receiver determination. So this is the receiver determination. You see the name, display receiver determination, and then it asks who's the receiver of the interface. And I gave the receiver as BC, business component file system 00. And then you go to the configuration overview tab, you expand your business system and you select the interface, and then you right click and you say new specific or new generic. And after that, you create your interface determination, you create your receiver agreement. And once you've created your receiver interface and receiver agreement, by selecting new specific, save and activate your change list. And upload file to file system using CG3Z. Okay, so with this, we come to the end of our first scenario, a file-to-file scenario. One thing is, what we have not yet done is we have not looked at how do I monitor this interface. You know, what happened in the message as it went through. We saw the input file and the output file, but where do you check the logs? Where do you see the processing of this message? All of this can be viewed in PI. PI is very sophisticated that way, and that is the next session that we will be looking at. How do you monitor the interface? And how do you enhance this interface that we have built for certain changes? What we will also do is we will make the interface fail and also see how do you monitor for errors and so on. So with that, I look forward to meeting you in the next session. Happy learning.